The sun rises slow over the Wyoming plains, a molten rim of gold sliding across miles of dust and sage. Wind carries the faint rattle of dry grass and the lonely creak of an old windmill. Out here, sound has space to echo, and so does a man's silence. Elias Hart, once a ranch hand tough enough to break wild broncos, now moves with the careful patience of someone who has lived too long with his own thoughts. He is 55, broad-shouldered but bent a little from years of work and memory. His mornings follow the same quiet ritual: feed the horses, mend the fence, boil black coffee strong enough to sting the tongue. He rarely speaks aloud, except maybe to the bay mare that listens better than most folks ever did. Inside the cabin, everything is orderly, tools hung just so, boots aligned, a folded blanket on a bed that hasn't felt another heartbeat in more than a decade. His late wife's shawl still hangs on a peg by the door, though the color has long faded to ash. When he brushes past it, the faint scent of cedar and smoke reminds him of winters when laughter once lived here. He pauses, every time, pretending he doesn't notice. The land has become his company. He reads weather by the tilt of a hawk's wings, loneliness by the way the evening light disappears too soon. Some nights he sits on the porch, pipe glowing in the dark, watching storms crawl across the far horizon. They never reach his ranch, they always drift away, like everything else he once cared for. But this morning feels different. The air tastes heavy, charged with something more than dust. The sky carries that strange stillness before thunder, a hush that feels like the world is holding its breath. Elias glances west, squinting at the clouds building over the mesas. He tells himself it's just weather, yet the unease lingers, tugging at an instinct he hasn't felt since his younger days driving cattle across hostile ground. He saddles his horse and rides the fence line, scanning the horizon for what might come. The wind picks up, carrying the scent of rain and wood smoke, and something else, faint but human. For a heartbeat, he thinks he hears voices. Then only the wind again. By noon, the light turns copper, shadows stretching long across the plain. He finishes his ride, ties the horse, and stands a moment in the doorway of the barn. His gaze drifts toward the open range, empty, endless, yet oddly expectant. He doesn't know it yet, but the storm rolling toward him will not just bring rain. It will bring 5 strangers who will change every quiet rule of his life, 5 souls fleeing danger, seeking mercy, and carrying with them the echo of a world he thought he had left behind. And somewhere deep in his chest, beneath the dust and age, something begins to stir, the faint, forgotten pulse of purpose. The storm rolls in by late afternoon, thick gray clouds pressing low over the valley like a lid. The wind hums through the dry grass, rattling loose boards on the barn and sending the chickens scattering for cover. Elias tightens the shutters and glances once more toward the western ridge. Something in him won't rest. Thunder growls, deep, deliberate, like a warning from the sky. Then he sees them. 5 riders, dark silhouettes against the pale lightning, moving slow through the rain curtain. Their horses look exhausted, one limps, head low. The figures draw closer until he can see blankets soaked through, braids undone, and faces streaked with grit and fear. When they reach the split-rail fence, the lead rider slides down. She's tall, her expression proud even as the rain stings her eyes. Naya. The name will come later, but even now, Elias reads it in her bearing, a woman used to leading, not begging. Behind her sit 4 others, younger, thinner, each carrying the same look of exhaustion that doesn't quite erase their dignity. Elias hesitates. Out here, strangers can mean trouble. His rifle leans just inside the door, but he doesn't reach for it. He meets Naya's gaze and sees no threat, only urgency. "Sir," she says, voice hoarse from the wind. "We need a place to rest. Just for the night. No harm meant." Her words are careful English, marked with the soft cadence of her people. Elias glances at the horizon, the rain thickens, turning to a wall of silver. He nods once, motioning toward the barn. "Get your horses under cover. You can stay till the storm breaks." The women exchange glances, disbelief flickering in their eyes. The youngest, barely 20, clutches her sister's hand before dismounting. Elias notices how her fingers shake, not from cold, but from a fear she's too proud to show. Another, with a long braid down her back, carries a bundle wrapped in hide. When lightning flashes, he sees it's nothing but a few herbs and a small drum. Inside the barn, the air smells of hay and rain-soaked leather. Elias strikes a lantern, the glow pushing back the shadows. For the first time in years, there are other voices here, soft murmurs, the rustle of fabric, the sound of horses breathing heavy in relief. He hands them dry cloths, pretending it's just the decent thing to do, though something about their quiet gratitude unsettles him. One of the younger women, Ayanna, whispers, "Thank you, rancher." Her tone is gentle but weighted, as if the words themselves carry a lifetime of meaning. Elias only nods, setting a kettle on the small stove. "You'll warm up faster with coffee," he mutters. The storm outside intensifies, but inside the barn, the lantern burns steady. 5 strangers and 1 lonely man share a silence broken only by rain. For Elias, it's the first time in years that the sound of the wind doesn't feel entirely empty. And as the thunder fades into the distance, a thought he can't explain roots itself quietly inside him. Maybe this storm didn't come to destroy his peace. Maybe it came to bring him company he didn't know he still needed. Night settles like a blanket over the plains. Rain drums on the roof of the small cabin, each drop a muted heartbeat in the hush. Inside, a single fire flickers, throwing long amber strokes across timber walls polished smooth by years of solitude. Elias sets another log on the flames, the crackle echoing in the stillness. He isn't used to company, certainly not 5 women huddled close together on his worn rugs, steaming blankets spread around them like the wings of tired birds. The air smells of smoke, wet earth, and bread warming on the iron skillet. Outside, thunder murmurs and fades. Inside, the women speak softly in their own tongue. Elias doesn't catch the words, but he understands the tone, relief stitched with caution. They've been running. You can hear that kind of fear in the pauses between breaths. Naya sits nearest the fire, posture straight despite her fatigue. Leadership lives in her eyes, calm, watchful, assessing. Across from her, Ayanna wrings rainwater from her braid, fingers delicate but strong. The youngest, Tala, fights to stay awake, her head nods and drifts against her sister's shoulder. Elias watches without staring, feeling something stir, a quiet sense of purpose he hasn't felt since before the world grew small around him. He slides a plate toward them. "Eat. It ain't much, but it's hot." Ayanna looks up, the light catching the water in her lashes. "You saved us from the storm. That is much." He shrugs, uneasy with gratitude. "Just did what any man ought to." For a while, only the fire speaks. The rancher sits in his chair, hands clasped, eyes on the flame. The women exchange stories in low tones, their words like music carried from far hills, broken, lilting, sometimes punctured by laughter. That sound surprises him, he hasn't heard laughter in his home for years. It feels almost foreign, like spring returning to land that forgot green. When Ayanna's gaze meets his across the fire, he notices a faint scar along her temple. He asks, "Careful, you hurt bad out there?" She touches the mark, smiles faintly. "No. Long ago. Long ago's when it still hurts the worst," he says, before realizing how honest that sounded. Something passes between them then, not attraction yet, but recognition. 2 souls aware of their own loneliness, acknowledging it without words. She looks away first, stirring the fire with a twig, her face bathed in orange light. Naya watches the exchange quietly, then murmurs, "The storm found us in the open. But maybe it meant to lead us here." Elias doesn't reply. He only looks toward the door where rain still whispers down the wood and wonders if fate truly does have a direction. As the fire burns lower, the women drift into uneasy sleep. Elias remains awake, listening to the rhythm of the rain and the soft breathing around him. His cabin, once a hollow echo of the past, feels alive again. And though he tells himself it's only for tonight, something inside him already knows, this night has changed everything. The rain finally breaks, leaving the world rinsed clean. Morning light stretches across the plains, soft and forgiving, glinting off puddles that dot the yard. The air smells of wet soil and pine smoke. For the first time in years, Elias wakes to the sound of voices instead of silence. Laughter, not loud or careless, but real, filters through the open window. He pulls on his worn coat and steps outside. The women are already working. Naya and Ayana hang blankets on the line, Tala chases a runaway chicken through the mud, and the others sweep the porch, their movements steady and purposeful. Sunlight catches the beads in their hair, water drips from their sleeves as they move like they've belonged here all along. Elias stands watching for a moment before clearing his throat. "You don't owe me chores," he says gruffly. Naya smiles without stopping her work. "We repay kindness with hands, not words." He doesn't argue. Truth be told, the rhythm comforts him, the hum of shared work, the simple human sounds that fill the space where loneliness used to echo. By midday the sky turns bright and wide again. Together they repair a section of the corral fence that the storm knocked down. Elias drives posts while Ayana holds the rails steady. Their shoulders brush once, just enough to startle them both. She looks up, a quiet grin tugging at the corner of her mouth. "You work too serious," she teases. "Habit," he mutters, but there's warmth in his voice that wasn't there yesterday. Tala and her sister bring water from the well, splashing each other, the sound of their laughter mixing with the creak of the bucket rope. Even the horses seem lighter, nickering as they graze in the wet grass. The ranch feels alive again, as if the storm washed away more than dust. When the work is done, they gather near the porch. Ayana passes around cornbread baked over the coals. Elias accepts a piece, nodding his thanks. Their fingers brush briefly, just skin against skin, no more, and the moment lingers longer than either expects. The touch feels like sunlight after too long a winter. As twilight falls, Elias fixes the lanterns while the women hum an old tune by the fire. The melody carries through the yard, rising and falling like the breath of the land itself. He sits a few paces away, listening, trying not to show how deeply it moves him. It's been so long since beauty lived here in any form. Before turning in, Naya walks past him and says quietly, "Your home breathes again. Don't let it fall silent when we're gone." He nods, unable to answer. The words stay with him long after the lanterns go dark. Inside his chest something restless and unfamiliar begins to grow, not quite love, not yet, but the fragile beginning of belonging. And for the first time in years, Elias' heart sleeps without the ache of emptiness pressing on his heart. The evening arrives heavy with heat and silence. The plains lie still, no wind, no sound of coyotes, only the restless creak of the barnwood cooling in the dusk. Elias feels it before he hears it, that uneasy stillness that says something's wrong. He steps out to the porch, scanning the far ridges, his hand resting on the old rifle he keeps beside the door. The sky glows dull red at the horizon, and for a moment he thinks it's sunset. Then the light flares, fire. A campfire too large, too close. He narrows his eyes and listens. Faint but sharp, the sound of men shouting drifts across the distance. The Apache women hear it too. Naya appears behind him, her expression hardening. "They're searching," she says quietly. "We knew they might come." Elias turns to face her. "Who?" "Riders," she answers. "Men who trade what they catch. They were near the river 2 days ago." The words sink like stones. He glances toward the women, Tala already trembling, Ayana helping her gather their few things. The old fear in their eyes tells him more than any explanation could. He doesn't think. He just moves. "Get inside," he orders. "Lock the back door. Keep the light low." He strides to the barn, throws the saddle on his horse, and mounts before anyone can protest. The night wind rises, carrying the smell of smoke and danger. Behind him, Ayanna's voice breaks through the dark, "Elias, don't go alone." He turns the horse slightly, meeting her eyes, wide, glistening in the lantern light. "I've lived my life hiding from trouble," he says. "Not tonight." Then he rides. The land rushes beneath him, silver under the moon. He moves with the old instinct of a younger man, keeping low, circling toward the ridge where the rider's campfire burns. The men's laughter carries across the dry air, mean and careless. 5 of them, maybe 6. Drunk. Reckless. Elias watches from the dark, his jaw tight. When one of the men mounts up and heads toward the ranch, Elias spurs his horse forward. A single gunshot cracks the night, his warning echoing through the canyons. The men scatter, startled, shouting. He doesn't aim to kill, only to scare, to draw them away. The chase stretches long, hooves pounding through the dust until the riders finally turn back, deciding this prey isn't worth it. Hours later, Elias returns under the paling stars. His arm bleeds from a graze, but he's alive. As he dismounts, the cabin door bursts open and Ayanna rushes to him. She presses a cloth to his arm, hands trembling. "You shouldn't have gone," she whispers. He smiles faintly. "Some things are worth the trouble." For a long moment, they stand there, no words, just breath and closeness and the quiet pulse of something newly born between them. The storm outside has passed, but inside, both their hearts are awake for the first time in years. The first light of dawn filters through thin clouds, pale and forgiving after a night of noise and fear. The plains lie washed clean again, glistening with dew. Smoke curls from the cabin's chimney, straight and calm against the soft pink sky. Elias sits on the porch steps, his arm bandaged, a tin cup of coffee cooling in his hand. His body aches, but his mind feels strangely still. Every breath tastes of wet earth and wood smoke, the scent of survival. Behind him, he hears quiet movement, the sound of 5 women packing, folding blankets, murmuring to one another in low voices. It's the kind of sound that should feel ordinary, but today it presses heavy against his heart. The door opens. Ayanna steps out carrying a small bundle of herbs. Her hair is loose for once, falling past her shoulders like ink against linen. She kneels beside him without a word, unwraps the bundle, and replaces the old bandage on his arm. Her touch is steady, gentle but unflinching. "You ride hard for strangers," she says softly, not looking up. Elias's eyes stay on the horizon. "Didn't feel like strangers anymore." She pauses, tying the cloth neatly. "That makes it harder to leave." The words land heavier than she intends. For a while they just sit there, the quiet between them filled with the soft hum of wine through the grass. When he finally speaks, his voice is low, rough with unsaid things. "You've got places to go." Naya appears in the doorway then, answering for them. "We can't stay. The riders may come back with more. Our people wait farther south." He nods, the gesture small but full of weight. He knows she's right. The world out here doesn't allow comfort to linger long. By midday, the women have the horses saddled. Tala ties a strip of blue cloth around one mare's neck, a charm, she explains, for safe travel. The youngest waves shyly when Elias lifts a saddlebag for her. Each small act of farewell cuts deeper than he expects. Naya takes his hand in both of hers. "You gave us shelter. That will not be forgotten." Elias manages a smile. "Wasn't me who did the saving." She squeezes his hand once, firmly, before turning away. Last to mount is Ayanna. She hesitates, eyes searching his face as though trying to memorize it. From her pocket, she pulls a small feather bound in a strip of rawhide. "Keep this," she says. "When the wind moves through it, remember we were real." He takes it carefully, his voice too quiet to answer. Then, with a soft click of reins, they ride out, 5 silhouettes shrinking against the golden expanse of morning. Elias watches until the horizon swallows them. The ranch grows still again, but the silence feels different now, not empty, but full of everything they left behind: laughter, courage, warmth. Inside, the fire still burns low, and the feather rests on his table, trembling with the faint breath of wine through the open door. Weeks have passed since the riders disappeared over the southern ridge, but the ranch still carries their echo. The days run together now: feed the horses, mend the gate, ride the fence, but something in the rhythm has changed. The silence no longer bites, it listens. Every morning, Elias finds himself glancing toward the horizon before the sun breaks. The habit surprises him. He tells himself it's for the weather, though deep down he knows he's searching for shapes that will never return. The air out here remembers, even if people try not to. On the porch rail, the feather Ayana left sways gently in the breeze. Its quills have frayed from wind and dust, but it catches the light like a living thing. Sometimes it flutters hard enough to tap against the wood, and that small sound feels like a heartbeat reminding him he's still part of something larger than loneliness. Inside the cabin, he's changed little. The shawl still hangs by the door, the fire still burns each night, but the space feels warmer now. He's added 6 extra plates to the shelf, though no one's here to use them. Maybe it's foolish, but he likes the thought of readiness, of a home that could welcome again. One afternoon he rides out to the ridge where he first saw them, the plains stretching endless and gold beneath the sky. He stops, dismounts, and stands in the wind. It lifts his hat, stirs the dust, and fills his lungs with the same wild scent of sage that used to mean nothing and now means peace. He thinks about Naya's calm strength, Tala's laughter, the songs they hummed while hanging laundry. And Ayana, her quiet courage, the way her eyes held both sorrow and hope without contradiction. He doesn't call it love. Maybe it was something rarer, a meeting of 2 weary souls who reminded each other that life can still surprise. She gave him no promise, only a feather, and somehow that's enough. When he rides back at sunset, the sky burns copper. He sits on the porch as the wind picks up again. The feather dances, spinning lazily in the fading light. He watches it until the last color drains from the sky, until the night takes everything but the sound of wind and the steady beat of his heart. Later, he lights a lamp and writes a few lines in an old ledger: nothing fancy, just truth. 5 women found safety here one stormy night. They left at dawn, and I reckon they took my silence with them. What they left behind was worth far more. He closes the book, leans back, and listens to the feather tapping gently against the porch rail. Outside, the wind keeps moving, carrying memory across the wide dark land. And for the first time in years, Elias' heart smiles, not because he's waiting for anyone, but because he finally knows he isn't alone anymore.